and John picks out a beer and we sniff it. John picks out a beer and we sniff it and we sip it. Nearly totally live. 10 steps below Main Street in glorious downtown Greenville, South Carolina, at the Trapdoor Restaurant. This is an episode of Big John and Five. And that's where I get my good buddy here, Big John Richards. John picks out a beer and we sniff it and we sip it, we get bits about it. John tells us usually a little bit about the brewery and sometimes some history of brewing. And with that, John, what do we have? And let me wait. Stop.
Stopping.
Let's pause.
Pausing.
The Trapdoor is a Belgian restaurant and tap room. So this is going to be a Belgian beer.
Yes.
Go ahead, John.
Paused for that.
Yes, you did.
We have kind
Because I thought we owed those 7 people watching us that
Yes.
what was going on.
That's yes, very important for them.
Yes.
Well, it's important for these guys too, because we want to give the love
A little shout
to
out.
our fellows here.
Yeah.
So we have a treat in front of us, Russ. It's the first quad ever brewed.
Get out of town.
That's correct. I'll give you $1 if you can guess what decade this beer was brewed in.
1732.
Incorrect. 1991. Yep.
I was only off by about 220 years.
The first quad in the world was brewed in the 1990s.
Is that right?
Yep. And this brewing, we think of the Trappists as being the oldest, beers in the world and this brewing tradition that goes on forever, which on some level it does. But most of the Trappist breweries are only 100, 150 years old. We just talked about Chimay being 150 years old because part of the problem was most of the Cistercian monks were based in France. And during the French Revolution, when they burned everything, the monks all fled, and a lot of them landed in Belgium and started monasteries there. And so when they revived their brewing traditions, it was in the 1800s. So we're seeing these beers that are still fairly young in the grand scheme of things, especially considering what we think of them. And so a lot of these styles, like the triple style was a 1980s style, if I remember correctly, and this is 1991.
You know what? My grandfather, Wildcat Harry, was making peach wine in his basement longer ago than that.
Yeah.
There was a greater tradition
Yep.
of peach wine making in my family. Well, nobody does it anymore. But
Was.
yes,
So
I'm
all of that to say, there's hundreds of years of brewing knowledge, and the monks, kind of passing down recipes. But these breweries and these specific
But it
beers
isn't much of a pass
are
down
still
from
fairly young.
1991.
Well, no, I mean, we're talking some of these breweries, started in the 1200s. Some of the traditions started in the 1200s or even earlier. But these breweries are still fairly young in the world scheme of things. And this recipe, this quad, is still very young. But we also, for thousands of years, didn't brew beer that was 10% alcohol. We brewed beer that was 2.5.
Pikers. They were pikers.
Pikers.
Yeah.
That's correct. So I'm going to pour this with special request for something a little more malty and rich.
Yes.
I won't,
And something
I won't
that-
say from whom it
That we could bring Buddy into the fray.
that too. La Trappe is I think 1884 it was founded. No, that's not nearly enough. Amateur. And we used to get this beer in the 90s and the early 2000s. We got this beer under the Koningshoven label, which is still the name of the abbey, is Abbey Koningshoven. But La Trappe is the name of the beer, and always has been everywhere else in the world except for here. But for some of you who grew up around here, or even probably all over the United States, you got Koningshoven Quad. That's what this beer is. It's just now called La Trappe because it was always called La Trappe. Remember when Nissan was called Datsun in the United States?
Yes.
But everywhere else in the world it was called Nissan.
Yes.
And now everyone calls it Nissan. Same problem.
So, aren't the La Trappes, weren't they the ones that sang?
They were the Von Trappes.
Oh. I thought,
you're-
wow, they started making beer.
But you're in the right corner of the world.
Okay, all right. The hills are alive, yeah.
Yeah.
Doe, or a deer, yeah, okay.
I suppose you're not wrong. I was singing My Fair Lady earlier, so we might as well sing Sound of Music
If you
now.
want something scary, it's this guy prancing around singing My Fair Lady song.
That's right. Especially when I was singing Eliza Doolittle once.
Yeah. It's not pretty.
Got this pretty amber color, these big deep raisin and fig notes. This is and all the caramel. It's gonna be fun, Russ. You're gonna
Text
enjoy
to
this
Miss
one.
Lily.
Man, the nose is great on that. So good. Oh, it's just a great beer. Oh man, so much really fresh baked bread that turns into spice, turns into the darker bread spice, almost a rye spice. You get the big caramel notes up front, and it drops into raisins, dates. I don't know that I get figs much, but I think it's raisins and dates.
I just want to mention that they're getting ready to open here, so there's a little bit of
Yeah.
racket, and they're
Construction,
doing
some
doing
activity.
some construction upstairs. So there's just in case you were thinking these guys aren't professional at all, but you would be right in that assumption.
Yes.
But that has nothing to do with all this racket going on.
A little banana in there too, Russ. You could definitely get some banana on that. Which isn't out of the ordinary. And all those flavors come from the yeast. No fruit is ever added to any of these beers. There's some fruit beers that comes out of Belgium, but these beers, all of this flavor,
We've had a couple of them today,
they were delicious.
and they were pretty good. I have to admit, as hard as it is for me to admit.
Indeed. Gotten Russ, who was all set in his ways into all kinds of beers he didn't think he was going to be into 5 years ago.
Shut up.
Fun times. on that note,
Wow.
what else you got? Got any questions for me? Something to teach your time?
Well, I do have questions for
Any
you. but
questions?
I don't think they need to
No, that's
to
fair.
hear the answers.
That's fair. Send them on their way.
So damn lucky. See you next time.